Hello all my beautiful sisters from those other misters, welcome back to my channel. Today I am doing a palette review. This is from Viseart. It is the Le Marais Étendu palette. I will just say straight off the bat, if your native language is French or you speak French and I'm butchering the language, just know that my first and only language is English. I do try my best, but I don't know much about the French language, so I'm going to make mistakes in this video. It is what it is. I'm just going to try my best. So when I saw this palette, I was pretty excited because I've been waiting for Viseart to release a color story that I was just like, yes, I'm so excited for. Now, they have released quite a few palettes since the last Viseart palette that I purchased, and I've thought they've all been pretty, but I've also been in the mindset of, you know, don't buy more palettes. But when I saw this one, I was like, I'm going to use every color in that palette. No phone, we're not interrupting today. We are being quiet. You too, laptop. Very good. So when I saw this, I was pretty excited. I was like, hell yeah, I'm going to buy it. And then when I received it, I was like, oh no, what have I done? Now, the reason why is not because of the color story, it is because of the size. And this is something that I didn't realize. I thought it was going to be the same size as this. This is one of their edit palettes. This one here in particular is the Paris edit. So this is another 12 pan palette from Viseart, but it is significantly smaller than the Étendu palettes. I didn't realize, I just didn't really put two and two together in my head, and I should have. In hindsight, I should have been able to 1 + 1 equals not the same size palettes, but I didn't, and I am disappointed in myself for that, because I don't want eyeshadow palettes with standard size pans or large pans anymore. It's just not, it doesn't work with my life, my makeup consumption life. Smaller pans means there is a mildly larger possibility that I might hit pan on something eventually. But I know, like, I will never finish this. I will never be able to finish this palette unless it was the only palette that I used for a whole year. I'm not going to finish it, and to me it's a waste. Eventually this is going to go bad, be unsafe for use, and I'm going to have to throw it away. A lot of it's going to end up in landfill. I don't want to come across like I'm an environmental warrior on this, because that's not the case at all. I am by absolutely no means perfect. I consume a lot of beauty products and I consume a lot of other things, and the sheer fact that I exist on this planet is doing damage to it. But I am trying to be a bit more mindful about what I am buying. I'm trying to buy things that are smaller if I know I'm not going to be able to use all of it, or not buy it at all if I know that it's too big and I'm not going to be able to use like 98% of it. So I didn't realize that this was bigger than these edits. Now I know I will not buy an Étendu palette again in the future. And that is not because of like anything wrong with the palette or the brand or anything like that. It is simply my personal preference and kind of like the minimizing beauty consumption kick that I'm on, because one day this is going to end up in landfill and that's my fault. I know that was a tangent, but I had to get it off my chest because it's been on my mind and it is my biggest regret with this palette. So there's that. I like to talk about, you know, why I buy things and why I think they were a smart purchase or not a smart purchase. And that is one of the driving factors why I think this was not a smart purchase for me, because I thought it was going to be this big and it's this big and it's too big. Sometimes size does matter. Let's stop waffling and get into the palette. I'm going to start by swatching it. This is a color story that just, I was like, hell yes, this speaks to me. Oh man, I'm going to have to swap this bracelet to another hand because this is not going to work for my work life. Let's get into it. So this one is Verdant. It's a white gold with a shimmer finish. This bracelet. Uh-oh, here we go. Tolerate it for now. I will try to remember to change it before I do another palette review. This next shade is a really nice, like, sort of peachy orange. It is a matte. This shade is called Rosier. They call it a soft cantaloupe with a matte finish. I would say that's accurate. Then we have a matte brownie shade. There are quite a few like matte browns in this palette, so if you're not into that, then it might not be for you. This one is Britannia. I think it's pronounced Britannia. It's a warm camel brown with a matte finish. Next we have Flana. I don't know, guys. This is a nude rose with a blue duochromatic finish. It's a really beautiful shade. Little tiny bit generic. We have seen these. They're very popular in palettes these days, but it's really, really pretty. Next up, we have an absolutely stunning peachy gold shade. I love this shade. It's stunning. It's Mascaron. It's a gold finch with a metallic finish. Shade number 6 is Savine, I think it's pronounced. This one is a bright purple with a matte finish. It does have like a micro sparkle in it, and I think they've done that to make it easier to blend. It was the one shade that I felt like I had problems with though, so we'll get into that. Next we have a gorgeous red shade. You can probably guess that this was one of the shades that drove me to madness into buying this palette. This one is called Paramentia. It's a poppy red with a shimmer finish. Next up, we have a really beautiful, rich, like almost winey plum shade. This one is called Republique. It's an aubergine with a shimmer finish. Then we have Charlotte. This one is a gold copper with a metallic finish. And the last few shades that we have are, I think it's Turenne, yeah, mid-tone brown with a matte finish. That's my guess anyway for the name. This one here is called Pletzel. It's a muted rouge brown with a matte finish. Really beautiful shade. And Quartier is the last shade. This one is a dark chocolate brown with a matte finish. I know it hasn't swatched great there. It's an elbow swatch. That is my bad. It's actually like... So that's a palette as a whole. It is a very me color story. There's no denying that. There is a shimmer hidden under this bracelet. Every shade is wearable for me. I think the only one that was a little bit scary was this shade. I did use it today. I would say it's a little bit darker and I probably won't reach for it as much as I will the other shades in the palette, but everything else super, super wearable for me. Now I did manage to use the whole palette, which is fantastic. So let's just jump straight into the looks and I can take you through my thoughts of each of the shades that I used. I do have notes over here, so that's what I'm looking at when I'm looking over here. So look number 1 in the crease, or like as a transition shade. Also I used this shade on the lower lash line. I used Rosier. Now this one, I felt that it needed to be kind of built up to get really good opacity. I typically, when I'm using an eyeshadow in my crease or as a transition shade, I use a larger fluffy brush and I do tap off my product so that I'm not getting too much there and sort of screwing up my look straight off the bat. So I went in light and I built it up. It does build well, which is fantastic. In my outer corner, I used Savine, which is this purple shade, and I had problems. It was strange. Look, purple's notoriously difficult to formulate. We know these things. I think this has a micro shimmer in it to make it easier to blend. Makes sense to me. I don't think it really helps. I found it to be a little bit patchy, and it gripped to some sort of invisible line on my eye. I can only assume that it was primer that had settled in my crease. I'm usually quite pedantic about making sure that I don't have any like pooling or creasing product on my eye, because I know that is a recipe for disaster. It appeared to me before I applied this shade that I did not have any pooling or creasing product, but I must have. And this stuff just decided that it was like super glue on that. I struggled to blend it out, and it wasn't until, you know, I applied other shades and lashes and mascara and everything else to try and hide it that things were kind of hidden. So I would say for me this has been a problematic shade. Using it in the future, I would be very, very careful about how I use it, just because I wouldn't want a repeat of that. In my inner corner, I used Mascaron. This had beautiful grip. It is an absolutely stunning shade. I will say with the shimmers in this palette and all of the other Viseart palettes that I've used, I think that they do benefit from a slightly more grippy primer. I think you're going to get the absolute best results from them. While they do adhere well to the eye on their own, they can be even better when they're paired with a primer that has just a bit more grip than, you know, your standard run-of-the-mill ones. But this shade is just so pretty. It has like depth of color and richness. It's stunning. In the pan, it kind of just looks like a warm gold, but it's just a little bit more special than that, and I love it. Over the center of my eyelid, I used the shade Flana, I don't know. This, look, like I said earlier, I do feel that this is quite a generic color. We have seen it before. We see it in a lot of palettes, but I think that's because it is a very beautiful shade, and it offers, you know, dimension, depth, light reflection, very complementary color to many skin types or skin colors. So I think it was a really nice combo. I love the sort of purple orange goldy kind of vibe that goes on with, you know, this color story. I think it's very, very complementary, and if this purple shade had played a little bit better, I probably would have been screaming from the rooftops that I just want to wear this look forever and ever, and that is the end of that. Look number 2 was going to be a lot more, you know, earthy tone, so I went in with a lot of the browns and the coppers in the palette. I started off with Britannia in the crease, which is, you know, the type of color I use in my crease all the time. No issues with this, it blended beautifully, no dramas. In the like outer corner, inner corner, I created kind of a halo, which is where you put color on the inner corner, the outer corner, and then you sort of drag it through the crease, but not up as high as your transition shade. I used this one here, which is Pletzel. This shade, goodness gracious me, it just blends like a dream. It applies beautifully, blends itself, absolutely wonderful shade. Over the eyelid, I used Charlotte, which is the gorgeous, gorgeous bronzy shade. I applied this initially and I was okay with it. I was happy. I thought it looked nice. And then I thought, I feel like I can get more pop from this. So I went over it wet, like I wet my brush and then went over it again, and you get that really beautiful vibrancy from it, which I really enjoyed. I did use Pletzel on my lower lash line and then on my inner corner, and as a little like teardrop kind of highlight under the eye, I used the shade Verdant, which is beautiful and bright. It's a champagne with like, I feel like there's like some nude hints in there, so it, for someone of my coloring, It's very complimentary. It can easily be used as a face highlight. I did do that today as well. I used it just a little bit here because I know when I sit here and I film a video, this area reflects light very well, so it's actually a really good way to show you how light reflective a highlight can be. And that shade is there today, so you can see it pops a lot of color. I even used it on my inner corner today. Oh, it doesn't pop a lot of color, it pops a lot of light. So really beautiful little combo there. I like it. I like that so far by doing these two looks, my opinions of the palette at that time were I can create beautiful like sunset, pretty colorful looks, and I can create these really beautiful more, you know, earthy tones, neutrals, still with that light reflect and the shimmer that I love from an eye look. And now for the look that I'm wearing today. I started with Terrain in the crease. I did go in carefully and lightly with this because I knew it was darker than the other matte brown that I'd used in the previous look. And it was great. You can definitely use this very lightly or go in quite heavy with it, or you can build it up to sort of get your in-between shade, and I chose to build it up. Then I took this guy, which is Quartier, in the outer corner. I was scared of this shade, and I will say I don't think it looks like it swatches very well, but I was pleasantly surprised. This blends beautifully. It blends beautifully. It creates this really nice depth of color, works really well with the other like brown shades in the palette. I would say occasionally sometimes with these darker browns that are sort of in that like chocolatey family, they can be really difficult to blend. And they can get patchy and a bit weird, but this one, not at all, absolutely beautiful. Then I wanted to use Republique, which is the darker sort of aubergine, they call it. I didn't really know how I was going to use this. I didn't want to use it all over the eyelid. I knew it would be too dark for me. So I thought I'm going to create like a little bit of a halo. So I popped it in the inner corner because I felt like it was going to match Quartier quite well. And it does. But when I applied it, I realized that it was fucking beautiful and it turned into something else. I kind of took it very, very lightly along my crease. Just with a tiny little pencil brush, and then I created an ever so soft wing with it. This shade is a pleasure to work with. It is a beautiful formula. It has great pigmentation. I had no fallout with it, which was fantastic, and it took me to a place that I didn't realize I was going to go, and that's, you know, sometimes eyeshadows do that for me, and I love it. Over my eyelid, you can probably guess, I'm using the shade Parmentier. I think that's how you say it. It's the red shade. This is fine. It's got okay grip. The color is a beautiful, like, true red, sort of, well, like cherry kind of bright red shade. I really like it. It doesn't lean pink. It doesn't lean orange. What I would say is I just applied this as it was today. I didn't apply it wet, and I didn't put down a sticky base. I just wanted to see how it went on its own. But you can see there when I swatch it with my finger that it's got a lot of richness of color. That tells me for sure, based on other shades in the palette, that I used wet. If I use it wet, I'm gonna get that like rich, intense vibrancy. You know what? Let me finish doing the last shade. This one's Verdant. I used it on my inner corner, like I said, as a little highlight here. I did take this shade, which is Turenne, on the lower lash line to finish it off. Let's put this on wet. Let's do it and see how it looks. All right, I'm just going to use like my Project Pan, you know, face spray, and just get this brush nice and wet and get off the excess. Pick some up. Yep, if it looks like paint, then you're probably on the right track. Let's see. Yeah, you can instantly see the difference, the vibrancy. This one's looking a little bit duller. It still looks nice. I think what's happening is like I'm using an Ulta Beauty matte primer, and it does have a matte finish. It's like a cream product, so it doesn't, maybe it does dry down completely matte. I still apply my eyeshadow while it's, you know, wet, but I would say if you're looking for this, apply it wet or use a stickier base. And obviously if you do something to one side, you've got to do it to the other. So let me do that. All right, there we go. So you can see that red can be very, very vibrant. I think I jacked up my lash on this side. It doesn't matter. So thoughts about the palette. I stand by what I said about this palette being too big for me. That doesn't mean that I'm not going to keep it and use it. I will. It just means I'm not going to buy these Étendu palettes in the future. And I will buy Viseart palettes in the future, but I will be very mindful to make sure that I check the weight of what I'm buying, so I know what I'm getting myself into. As far as I'm aware, we can't shop for these in store in Australia, so I can't just go in and like pick it up and look at it. So I have to buy this online, which means I have to do my research before I purchase it. Lesson learnt. Now, putting all of that aside, I fucking love this palette. It's beautiful. Besides the purple shade and the issues that I had with it, which is like it instantly turns me off that shade, doesn't mean I won't have a better experience with it in the future. It just means my initial use of it was a bit of a problem, but potentially we can work around that in the future. Everything else in the palette is fantastic. There is a really nice balance of mattes and shimmers. We've got like the sort of neutral brownie mattes that I love to put with any look, because it means I can use color without it being like super bright and vibrant and rainbow, which isn't really my vibe. Or I can go even more muted with the golds and the champagnes and the coppers and stuff like that. So I love it. This is, you know, bordering on a perfect color story for me, and it's what I gravitate to. I also purchased the NARS holiday palette this year, which is quite a similar color story vibe to this, and this is just what I like. I know that these colors work with my skin tone, they complement my hair colors, they complement my eye color, and they complement the types of like clothing colors that I like to wear. So this is just like, it's me, and it's perfect, and it's great. The formula is also fantastic. I just wish it was an itty bitty tiny baby edit palette. That's all. That's all. I just wish it was smaller. So that's pretty much all I have to say about the palette. On one hand, I do regret the purchase because of the size, but on the other hand, I don't, because for the most part, the colors and the formula really ticks a lot of boxes for me. So there's that. But yeah, I've got her now. She's part of the family, so she stays. If you guys picked up this palette, let me know your thoughts in the comments, and I will catch you in the next one.